My Old Testament character is Gideon, and I wanted to tell the story because it's rather long if we read it in the Bible. But I'm looking at the Bible and seeing that, so telling us the brief version of the story. I hope I'm trying this for the first time. How does it go? Well, the Israelites did evil in the sight of the Lord, and for 7 years he gave them into the hands of the Midianites, and they were really oppressed. It was a very hard time for them. And then they cried out to the Lord because it was so difficult. They cried to him for help, and he sent them a prophet who said that the Lord brought you out of Egypt, I rescued you from the Egyptians, delivered you from all your oppressors, and told you that I am the Lord your God. Don't worship their gods in the land where you're living, but you took no notice. And the angel of the Lord came and sat down under the oak tree in Ophrah that belonged to Joash, and his son Gideon was threshing wheat secretly to keep it from the Midianites. And the angel appeared to Gideon, and it's very funny actually, the story of Gideon, because it resonates with us. I think this is how we might feel. The Lord is with you, mighty warrior. Imagine if God said that to you, mighty warrior. Kath, Brenda, Linda, Ange, me. Nick. Sorry, nearly forgot. Anyway, little Gideon says, pardon me, my Lord, so polite, but if the Lord is with us, why has all this happened to us? Why are we suffering so much? What happened to all the things our ancestors told us about? Didn't the Lord bring us out of Egypt, etc.? But now the Lord has abandoned us, it's a bit, poor me, poor us, and you would feel that, I think. And perhaps having forgotten the history, you're in a new generation and you forget what life was like earlier on when God was in charge. And the Lord turns to him and says, go in the strength you have and save Israel out of Midian's hand. Am I not sending you? Him, says Gideon. Pardon me for asking another question, but how can I save Israel? My clan is the weakest in Manasseh, and I am the least in my family, as though God didn't know that already. And God says, I will be with you, and you will strike down all the Midianites, leaving none alive. So Gideon is still very nervous and anxious, and that reminds us perhaps of us. If now I've found favour in your eyes, give me a sign. First sign, Gideon asks for. Please don't go away till I come back. Now I've got you, Lord. Please be here when I come back and bring my offering and eat it before you. And the Lord says, I will wait. So he prepares a young goat, etc., and brings them out, offers them under the oak. And then the angel says, take it and place it on this rock and pour out the broth. So he did as he was told, and then the angel of the Lord touched it all with the tip of the staff that was in his hand, and fire fled from the rock, consuming the meat and the bread, showing that God is present. And the angel of the Lord disappeared at that point. Gideon realizes that was the angel of the Lord and is terrified that he might die, having seen the angel of the Lord face to face. But the Lord says to him, peace, don't be afraid. And fear was obviously the hallmark of Gideon. You're not going to die. So then Gideon builds an altar to the Lord and calls it the Lord is Peace. And to this day it stands in Ophrah, to that day when that was written. But that same night, he's told by the Lord to take the second bull from his father's herd, a 7-year-old bull, tear down your father's altar to Baal. That's no mean feat, is it, to be asked to do that? And cut down the Asherah pole beside it, and then build a proper kind of altar to the Lord your God on the top of this height. Using the wood of the Asherah pole that you cut down, offer the second bull as a burnt offering. Well, he'll be even more nervous by this time to have to go against his father and his religion and the customs of all the people. So he takes 10 of his servants, did as God told him. Bear in mind, that wasn't easy. But he was afraid, of course, of his family and the townspeople, so he did it at night rather than the daytime. And then when the people find it in the morning, there's a Baal's altar demolished and all that. And they say to themselves, who did this? And then they find out it was Gideon, son of Joash, who did it. And they demand of Joash, bring out your son, he must die. He's broken down Baal's altar and cut down the Asherah pole beside it. But Joash, interestingly, the father, replies and says, are you going to plead Baal's cause? Are you trying to save him? Whoever fights for him shall be put to death by morning. If Baal really is a god, he can defend himself when someone breaks down his altar. So that are wise words. He's not totally given over to Baal by the looks of it. So because Gideon broke down Baal's altar, they call him Jerubbaal, meaning let Baal contend with him. But Baal can do it if he can, and if he can't, then he's no god at all. So the Midianites and co. all cross over the Jordan and camp in the valley near of Jezreel. And then the Spirit of the Lord comes on Gideon, and he blows a trumpet, brave move, summoning the Abiezrites to follow him. He sends messengers calling them to arms, and he says to God, if you will save Israel by my hand as you've promised, look, I will place a wool fleece on the threshing floor. It's another difficult, scary moment, so he needs another sign from God. If there's dew only on the fleece and the ground is dry, I will know you will save Israel by my hand, as you said. And that is what happened. God rose early the next day, squeezed the fleece and wrung out the dew, a bowl full of water. You'd think that'd be enough, but then he says to God, don't be angry with me. Can I just ask one more thing, one more test with the fleece? Because maybe, as we might think, maybe I misunderstood that. Maybe it was just chance, maybe whatever. Is it really God speaking? And then God did what he asked. God dealt with him kindly. He let him have his request, even though it showed a lack of faith, I suppose. So anyway, as you know, God cuts down the army that Gideon hopes to take, the massive army, and ends up with 300 men against all these thousands. What's that about? As we know, that's about God showing his power. It wasn't about little Gideon, it was about what God can do. And what does that mean for us? Well, everything. When we think back to, we had a Gideon weekend several years ago with Brian, and I remember then distinctly thinking, I know, Lord, but, we've already lost a lot of people. Please don't make it any smaller than it already is. And lo and behold, 2 more hopped off and then, or moved or whatever. And we've got small, and then 2 others. And, we were left with 6 and then 5. And what's that about? Well, it's about exactly the same thing, isn't it? Because anything that happens through Church View is a result of the power of God, nothing to do with us. We know that. But isn't it encouraging to know that God can take one little fearful man or woman and can do big things? And, for me, this is as encouraging now as it was those several years ago. And just at last we're beginning to see that, God is fighting on our side, and he is doing things. He's blessing our commitment, our love for him, our perhaps feeble but nevertheless attempts at listening to him, maybe doubting sometimes, maybe feeling worn out sometimes, whatever, but nevertheless God is with us, and he will do what he set out to do through us. And that verse from Thessalonians about him fulfilling the desires of our heart, the things that we've set out to do for him, the good things that we want to do in his name, he will fulfill them. So that's me. Thank you. You switch off.